Welcome back, everyone. Today's book is a fan submission, which I'm so excited about. I actually got someone who watched the channel and said, hey, here's a book, go review it. I'm excited about that. Anyway, today's book is submitted by user Torino Deguzman. He has been reviewed on this channel before. You can go back to my video about Halo X Night Stalker with the fan fiction if you want to see what I thought of his work. But when I got done working with him, he suggested this book, Halo: The Fall of Reach by Eric Nyland. Just a warning, I have never played any of the Halo games. I've seen a few friends play the game, so I know Master Chief, I know Cortana, I know the Covenant, but anything lore related, I didn't know any of that going in, so don't yell at me too much if I mispronounce a name or if I didn't completely understand something from the book. Please be nice. Anyway, so Halo: The Fall of Reach, Halo: The Fall of Reach, the definitive edition, was a really good book, actually. It answered my biggest question that I've always had of why does he not talk? Like, ever. There's been 5 games, and I hear there's a 6th coming out. He doesn't talk at all. It's just always bugged me. But the book starts out with a young Master Chief, well then he was called John, where he gets pulled into the program, let's say, and it goes all the way through boot camp, basic training, his version of it anyway, and then he ends up becoming Master Chief, and then the Covenant shows up, and they try to wipe out humanity. And that's the extent of the spoiler-free version. The first thing I liked about this book is the things we do to keep society safe that aren't necessarily ethical, but they're kind of like things that sometimes need to happen. If you know the Halo series, you know that the Spartan program isn't exactly... well, there's some child abduction, let me just say that. And Dr. Halsey, the main doctor, the main scientist on the program, she has some major hang-ups around what has to happen with these children. Now, why do they need to be kidnapped? Well, in order to fit into that lovely suit of armor that's called the Mjolnir armor, you have to go under the knife, under some treatments of such, and you don't exactly survive it if you are over a certain age. I want to say 17. It's not very clear in the book. They kind of have to use kids to make these soldiers. And that's scary, and that's sad. But Dr. Halsey is of the belief that they need these soldiers to keep the world safe, and yada yada. Well, all throughout the book, she steps to the right and says, well, yes, let's do this thing. But then, 10 pages later, she'll say, well, I wish I didn't have to do it. Is there a way out of this? Even to the point where, at the very last mission, they're about to go and say, hey, we need you to go over to the Covenant homeworld, get a thing, and bring them back here. And she knows full well that there's a good chance that maybe half of the group is going to return alive, if anyone's going to return alive. When assigning this mission, she straight up says, it really, really needs to happen, but it's a volunteer-only mission. And that kind of bothered me. She wanted to give these people something, like some control over their life, because normal soldiers, they know up front, hey, I'm writing a blank check for military service, and if the cost is my life, well, okay, it's all for the glory of my country, all for the safety of my people. But she knows these guys never volunteered, and so she gives them an out. And giving someone an out when they don't really have an out bothers me. It's not cheap writing, but it's a huge ethical dilemma. I kind of just wish she'd had the nerve to say, hey, look, here's the mission, we're going on it. But she kind of falters and says it's volunteer. And of course everyone volunteers because they've been taught from a very young age to pursue the mission at all costs get it done and get home. So of course they do it, but it kind of bothered me. The interactions in the first third of the book between Chief Petty Officer Mendez and who was at the time called John was just really sweet. They're both rough and tumble people, very, very militaristic, very, this mission, if it goes south, it's my fault because I'm the leader. That's just how they are. But the way they both said goodbye when John graduates from the program, I don't know if I was having an emotional day or what, but it got to me. So I'm going to read their goodbye from page 115. All the other people in the group have filed out of the final graduation ceremony, and it's just John and Chief Petty Officer Mendez. The chief dug into his jacket pocket. I was hoping to see you before they shipped me out. I have something for you. He set a small metal disc on the riser between them. When you first came here, the chief said, you fought the trainers when they took this away from you. Broke a few fingers, as I recall. His chiseled features cracked into a rare smile. John picked up the disc and examined it. It was an ancient silver coin. He flipped it between his fingers. It has an eagle on one side, Mendez said. That bird is like you, fast and deadly. John closed his fingers around the quarter. Thank you, sir. He wanted to say that he was strong and fast because the chief made him so. He wanted to tell him that he was ready to defend humanity against this new threat. He wanted to say that without the chief he would have no purpose, no integrity, and no duty to perform. But John didn't have those words. He just sat there. Mendez stood. It has been an honor to serve with you. Instead of saluting, he held out his hand. John got to his feet. He took the chief's hand, and they shook. It took a great deal of effort. Every instinct screamed at him to salute. Goodbye, Chief Mendez said. He turned briskly on his heel and strode from the room. John never saw him again. I think the reason why I'm so, I found it kind of emotional is that Mendez, treated them as equals at that point. Even though their ranks were nowhere near equal at that time. It's the respect, the honor that one gives the other. It was just a very sweet passage, and I liked seeing these two grow from the person in charge screaming at the new boot, as he calls him, the first time they meet, to them being equals. Was just a really sweet story progression. I'm not sure if it's because I didn't play the games, but the absolute power move that happens when the Covenant introduce themselves. That's a way to introduce a villain right there, or at least a villainous species. This introduction happens literally 3 or 4 pages before the emotional to me, parting of Mendez and John. This is the Vice Admiral of the fleet that Master Chief is part of, reading. He paused, considering his words. Fragments of the enemy's transmission were intercepted, he continued. A few words have been translated. We believe they call themselves the Covenant. However, before opening fire, the alien ship broadcast the following message in the clear. He gestured to Beowulf, who nodded. A moment later, a voice thundered from the amphitheater's speakers. John stiffened in his seat when he heard it. The voice from the speaker sounded odd, artificial, strangely calm and formal, but laden with rage and menace. Your destruction is the will of the gods, and we are the instrument. John was awestruck. He stood. Yes, Spartan, Stanforth said. Sir, is this a translation? No, the Vice Admiral replied. They broadcast this in our language. I mean, you might not find that, badass, but I did. Speaking of Beowulf, that was not the Beowulf from ancient literature that I'm referring to. That is one of the AIs. And that stuck with me even after this book. So everyone knows that artificial intelligence exists in our world. And if you have seen any artwork from any of the Halo series, you've probably seen Cortana. She's an artificial intelligence. She's a little bit smarter. She's what they call a smart AI. I can't remember if Beowulf is. I don't believe he is. And then there's a third one called Deja. What all three of these artificial intelligences have in common is that they get to choose what they look like. They get to choose their hair, their skin, how tall they are, how short they are, what they wear, just everything about their presentation. They get to pick. I find it really dangerous to let artificial intelligences decide for themselves who or what they are. It's almost like you're giving them rights. And we very well may come to a point in society where AIs have like a personhood status. I mean, shoot, we already have a robot in Japan that has the right to take someone to court over sexual assault. Like, it's there. But if this were real, I'd be concerned that we were speeding that up way too fast by giving AIs the ability to do this, because whenever AIs get personhood, humanity's not going to be ready for it, and I don't feel like we should be giving humanity less time to come to terms with it. But if you're the type of person that says, well, if we do this off the bat, humans will just have to get used to it, that's a fair point. Feel free to mention that in the comments below if you're in that category. I will respectfully disagree, but not very angrily. But that point isn't really a critique of the book itself. It was a writing choice that Nyland made and that Microsoft probably said, yeah, sure, go ahead. Overall, I give this book a 4 stars out of 5 for family friendliness and enjoyability. If you're old enough to play the games, you're old enough to see what Covenant does to worlds when they find them, then this book is fine. But that's like the only little star that I'm taking off for family friendliness. I definitely would give this book a read, either digitally through your public library, or you can just straight up buy the book like I did. Definitely give Mr. Nyland some of your time, because he did a good job in writing it. I'm not really a Halo fan, and I enjoyed the book. So, tune in next time for my next book. Bye, guys.